What is darkness? The absence of light from our visage, or the culmination of shadows grown so invasive over our hearts and minds that nothing else exists but the blackness? Darkness can take on many shapes and forms, from a visual hue to a physical manifestation of our deepest fears. Darkness can be typified by a sense of dread and hopelessness, a place we dare not tread too long, lest we be lost in the abyss of torment. In the Legend of Zelda, darkness is personified by the Dark Realm, a demon world of sorts, where creatures of pure evil are born, including the being, known in lore most commonly as Dark Link. Also referred to as Shadow Link, this enigma has appeared randomly throughout the series, acting as a challenge to rival the hero and sporting the same moveset and skills. In every way, he is you, and you are him, leading to the cry, "Conquer yourself." With the sequel to Breath of the Wild set to be darker in tone, and similarities being made to Majora's Mask, it's only fitting we should wonder, what if Dark Link returns? To earn your interest and valuable time, I wanted to present some findings that I found while researching this concept. As always, your thoughts on the items presented might differ from mine. That's perfectly okay. But if you find them interesting and worthy of your thoughts and time, then I'd ask you to watch the rest of the video, where the theory is further fleshed out. It is a theory and elements of speculations abound, but there's more to this mystery we can find hidden in plain sight. Firstly, let's start with what I thought was a very strange observation. In researching the theory in early days, I went to the books on hand to read up on Dark Link and Shadow Link. I noticed a more overarching connection to the first Legend of Zelda titles that really caught my interest, and the character of Dark Link was a pronounced player in the leading events. Referring also to the references in Breath of the Wild, I consulted Creating a Champion, otherwise known as Masterworks in Japan, to verify what I knew about the Dark Link outfit you get in the game. This is where things started to get a little odd. You see, the Dark Link outfit is not referenced in Creating a Champion at all, not under the armor and clothing section, nor under monsters, or anywhere you might expect it to be. This might seem like a chance omission, but when you consider that literally every other outfit, other than the Switch shirt and the Ravager in-game crossover with Xenoblade Chronicles 2 are present, including those found in the DLC packs, it begs a greater question. Why is this outfit not in a tome that covers nearly every aspect of the game? If I sound paranoid, fair call, but I should warn you, it's not going to get better from here. The intrigue surrounding the Dark Link outfit only increases the more you look. The clothing can only be obtained from one place in the game, and that's being purchased from Kilton upon completion of the 4 Divine Beasts, and at a hefty price of close to 4,000 mon, the most expensive items by far. For those not sure what mon is, this is a currency specific only to Kilton and represents monster money, the cash earned by trading monster parts with this colourful, if not a little creepy character. Kilton is a dealer in all things monster related, even selling monster essence which, combined with the right ingredients, can even help produce monster cake, a critical item for one of the side quests found in the game. Referring back however to the Dark Link outfit, the descriptions that go with specific pieces of the ensemble explain that they are made based on the image of a monster born of darkness. The items include the Dark Hood, Dark Tunic and Dark Trousers, all of which cannot be upgraded by the Great Fairies, nor recoloured at the Kochi Dye Shop. The entire outfit is tailored to match the garb worn by the Hero of Time, a callback to the first chronological encounter Link has with his dark nemesis in Ocarina. Regardless of the incarnations and appearances since, it seems fitting, if not a little strange, that Dark Link would marry his outfit to the version of Link from the game at the beginning of the timeline split, and where this creature is first encountered. It gets even stranger if we go by the description, which states the clothing is made by Kilton himself, which begs a reasonable question to ask how he could possibly know the attire of the Hero of Time. Surely he did not come up with the exact replica by pure chance, so we can only deduce that there is more to this outfit than Kilton is letting on. When Link dons the Dark Link outfit, he shares the dark red glowing eyes we see in that surreal cutscene from Twilight Princess, referencing the powerful ancient dark tribe that were banished to the Twilight Realm when the kingdom came under threat. The outfit elicits responses of fear and dread from other characters in-game. Dare it be said, almost the same reaction most people get when they watch this disturbing cutscene. It's as if the outfit itself is imbued with the same darkness it was born from, exuding a sinister terror on the NPCs who cower in its presence. The cost of the dark tunic itself is 999 mon, an odd amount, until you hold this up to a mirror and see the reflection equates to 666. A little disconcerting. Going further with the theme at hand, I realised as well that the term dark features frequently when referencing characters and events in the game. The final stage of the boss fight with Ganon is actually referred to as Dark Beast Ganon. The luminous outfit, glowing with Stalfos-like features, is a reflection of the luminous stones which glow in the dark, a curious reference highlighted in the initial teaser trailer for the sequel. Other references range from the Phantom Ganon armor set, rumoured to be possessed by a dark entity, to the staple Master Sword, referred to as the sword that seals the darkness. The Sheikah is said to operate in the dark corners of history, and even the history of Hyrule speaks of an endless cycle of darkness and light where Ganon is revived then sealed away. The revival of Calamity Ganon is marked by dark clouds gathering, where the champions fought valiantly, yet none were able to stand against the dark manifestations of Ganon. Even Zelda's speech for the ancient ceremonial blessing states, "You have shown unflinching bravery and skill in the face of darkness and adversity." In fairness to the observations made, they may not all be the correct translations from the original Japanese text in Masterworks. I'm certainly no expert, and I suspect someone out there will be able to quickly dispel the references as an oversimplification from Dark Horse in translating the material to English. One could argue that the frequency of the term can be explained in the juxtaposition of light to dark, often used in literature to represent opposing forces, and a crucial theme that underpins the series to date. Still, it left me curious and I wondered if I'd be the only one. So let's switch gears, and I'll finish this section off with another curiosity I discovered, or should I say, didn't discover. In your many travels of Hyrule in Breath of the Wild, have you come across an object you can clearly identify as a mirror? It's an odd question. I've explored around the villages, and the closest I can come across is something like this object in Pyre's room, although if it is a mirror, it's covered over, making it impossible to verify. Smaller versions could be found in a house or two in Hateno, but for the whole, mirrors appear to be almost completely absent in this massive world. And if you're wondering why this has any relevance to Dark Link, then let me assure you, I'll explain. See, the findings above have one thread in common. They're all hidden in plain sight, and could be considered at best an odd coincidence, or at worst, almost disconcerting. They're curious when you consider them, each on their own, and for me anyway, downright interesting when you start to view them collectively. We all face hardship, and if you've tackled feelings of loneliness, anxiety, and fear, you might share a similar view when it comes to defining darkness. See, my experience with true darkness is like describing an entity that looms out of sight, but always peripheral, hovering like a spectre in the recesses of your senses, until it sheds its disguise and greets you wholesale. Before you know it, darkness is upon you with all its magnificent shade and bewilderment, commanding your senses and attention in a confrontation of your inner demons and truths. The clues are there, but all too often we only put them together when the reckoning comes to our front door. Everything is a coincidence until it's not, and every signal irrelevant until it's crucial. There's every chance the observations covered here are a novelty at best, coincidental and explainable, the musings of a curious mind. But what if they're not? Before we begin, I want to set the scene for the rest of the video that I consider Dark Link and Shadow Link to be one and the same. There are plenty of videos out there that cover the topic in general, much better than I can, and the references from Japanese to English that lead most to believe that, for all intensive purposes, Dark Link and Shadow Link are the same entity. As it's not the focus of this video, I wanted to cover it off and just move on. The first appearance of Dark Link in-game can be traced all the way back to the Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. In this outing, Dark Link serves the role of the final boss challenge at the end of the game. Chronologically speaking though, and with reference to the heavily debated timeline, Dark Link makes his debut in Ocarina. As the player traverses the many wonders and challenges of the Water Temple, they stumble across an area that is mystical, and so out of place that it commands attention and a sense of awe. The scene is unworldly in a way, an open area brightly lit with a soft layer of water gracing the floor, acting as a mirror to the world above it. Between the entrance and exit of this space sits a lone dead tree, a distinct character of solitude in this illusionary void. Symbolism in this space is bold and direct. The water is a powerful medium in Japanese Shintoism, where the worshipping of kami, otherwise known as Japanese deities or spirits, begins with an act of purification by water. Water is cleansing, providing renewal and removing corruptions through fluid, formless simplicity. It is also the source of life. Not only are we reliant on hydration for basic function, but it also acts as a source of food, transport, trade, and connection. The meaning of water is as varied as its applications in our lives. The other striking symbol in the room is the dead tree. Most are familiar with the tree of life, but a dead tree is almost the juxtaposition of the same, representing death. So it is more than interesting that when the player passes this tree, their reflection disappears, no longer visible in the mirrored surface of the water below. Like a part of Link has somehow just died, and he, like the tree, is now all alone in this dimension, where even his shadow and reflection have left him to go alone. When you experience this for the first time, I dare say most people aren't acutely aware of what is happening. They likely don't sit to ponder the intricate pieces as we've done here, but more so notice that the area is odd. Now past this tree, something has changed. Maybe a feeling of caution starts to kick in as you realise not all is as it seems. This change in atmosphere belies the calming nature of the scene, and soon enough the player's fears are realised when they gaze back on the tree to find their reflection, Dark Link, staring back at them in pure defiance. Navi, your fairy guide throughout the game, provides the most succinct and apt advice she espouses throughout the entire game. Conquer yourself. The battle is an ebb and flow, depending on the actions of the player, with Dark Link responding in kind to your movement and level of aggression. Victory here sees a guttural scream from Dark Link as he falls through the floor, and the visages of water and tree disappear like a mirage, revealing the space to be nothing but an ordinary room, bookmarked by Link's shadow returning to his figure. As Ocarina of Time ends, the timeline splits into 3 unique outcomes. Where Link wins against Ganon, we have the child timeline, where he's sent back to live out his youth by Zelda, and the adult timeline, where the events proceed without the hero of time due to him being sent back to the child timeline. And finally, most controversially, we have the fallen timeline, an alternate reality where the hero of time loses to Ganon in the final battle, leaving Zelda and the sages to seal Ganon in the sacred realm with the Triforce in order to protect the land of Hyrule. Following this timeline, the next game chronologically is A Link to the Past. In this adventure, it is explained that Ganon, locked away in the sacred realm with the Triforce, turns this land into the Dark World, a place of demons and monsters. In Hyrule though, word of the Triforce and immense power promised lures fortune hunters to cross realms, where they soon find themselves turned into monster form and recruited to Ganon's ever-growing Legion of Evil. With his power ever growing, Ganon seeks revival into the light world of Hyrule, and a new hero must save both Zelda and Hyrule once more. As other legends come and go, it's next in the Oracle games that Ganon's mentor, Twin Rover, calls out of this dark realm the Sorceress of Shadow, Viren, who summons 4 Darklings to join her in the final battle. Again, our hero must overcome the villain, as well as the dark versions of himself, in order to save Hyrule. Interestingly enough, in these games, Twin Rover attempts to resurrect Ganon by sacrificing Zelda. When she is unsuccessful, Twin Rover sacrifices herself. Now, she lacks the blood of the goddess, and the subsequent resurrection does not go according to plan, and results in a beast-like creature replacing the once intelligent King of Thieves. From this point, he is known simply as Beast Ganon, creature of malice, bent on destruction, and without reasoning. Starting to sound a little familiar. Dark Link appears in Four Swords Adventures, promoted in Ganon's army and now leading the forces of evil in servitude of their master. A reference in game provides some interesting context, particularly when viewed in light of other details we know within the lore. It states, long ago a dark tribe invaded Hyrule. They were defeated and imprisoned within the mirror, Shadow Link. Could he be your evil reflection cast by the dark mirror? If that were the motive of the mirror's thief, this is disastrous. If we don't get the mirror back, Hyrule will be overrun with evil Shadow Links. Here we have references to a dark tribe sealed into a mirror world following an invasion of Hyrule. Breaking this down, we know the Dark World was created by Ganon from the Sacred Realm when he was sealed with the Triforce in A Link to the Past. This realm was able to be accessed by Link in that game via a magic mirror, the same tool implied in the events of Four Sword Adventures. Furthermore, the whole description sounds eerily familiar to the events of Twilight Princess, where we find out about the Twilight, who were also considered a powerful magic-wielding tribe sealed into a mirror-like dimension after a failed invasion of Hyrule. Ganon himself was sealed in the Twilight Realm by the sages following his failed execution at the Arbiter's grounds and subsequent murder of the Water Sage. About now you might be thinking to yourself that some of these themes are repeating, and you'd be right. There are variations to each and intricacies worthy of acknowledging, but the same motifs of Dark World, Mirror Traversal, an ancient Dark Tribe, and Ganon all seem to recur. The origins of Dark Link are heavily debated, although the appearances seem to err more towards the entity being something born of the darkness, recruited into Ganon's horde with his allegiance earned by his freedom from the Dark World. More than that, Dark Link appears to gain more importance in Ganon's endeavours, playing a more defining role in his master's plans and more influence in the legends of times past. All of this leads us to the final entry of the Fallen timeline, The Legend of Zelda 2: Link's Adventure, where Dark Link serves as the final boss in Link's campaign. But even this appearance brings about some debate. To understand the confusion and importance to this theory, it's crucial to understand the story of Link's adventure, and why it might be more integral to the events of Breath of the Wild 2 than many have considered. Around the launch of Breath of the Wild, Nintendo broke with tradition and presented at GDC with a detailed exploration of their process in development of the new Zelda title. The presentation centered around the driving philosophy, breaking conventions, a mantra to challenge the staid tropes of Zelda that had defined the franchise, while simultaneously obscuring its relevance in the modern era of gaming. If A Link to the Past had established the fundamentals, Ocarina of Time had refined the formula to perfection, setting the blueprint for 3D action-adventure titles to follow, and a narrative still widely considered best in class today. Decades later though, Nintendo found themselves unable to outdo the heights achieved back in Ocarina of Time, and the Zelda franchise, while still adored by loyalists, was struggling to define its place in the future landscape. The team recognised the dilemma, and that only through challenging the conventions of what made a Zelda game could they truly chart a new course and reinvigorate their flagship title, and it all began with looking back to the first Zelda game. See, way back in the late 1980s, Shigeru Miyamoto was in the process of revolutionising the video game market, bringing it back to life following the collapse of the post-Atari era. Following on from successes with Donkey Kong and Super Mario Bros., Miyamoto longed to tap into the experience he had as a child exploring caves with a simple lantern. The event had stuck with him, and he thought it would translate to children around the world who also sought adventure. This developed into the first Legend of Zelda. The game was unlike anything out at the time, and amongst its firsts for gaming included the ability to save your progress. Taking on the character of Link, players could set out into the open wilds to explore, find dungeons, secrets. Before they knew it, they were swept up on a quest to save Princess Zelda from a villain named Ganon. The team presenting at GDC recognised that in the first Zelda game, linearity did not exist. Players were not directed to do anything. If they so wished and were skilled enough, they could take on the hardest challenges in the game. And so in developing Breath of the Wild, they wanted to provide this sense of freedom back to the player. You can head direct to the castle to do battle with the Calamity if you so wish. The only requirement was the completion of the introductory plateau area and 4 shrine challenges, designed to introduce the Sheikah Slate mechanic, rudimentary tools like magnesis, bombs, stasis, and cryonis, as well as the all-important sailcloth for traversal. Combined, you were now set with an arsenal of abilities to explore the wilds and progress through the game. Controversially, the player did not need to defeat a set number of dungeons or even collect the Master Sword to beat the final boss. No, this was an old-school Zelda with a new look, and the gamble resulted in arguably the best game of all time. Even an early dev kit of the game was one built in the traditional 2D style of the first Legend of Zelda, and allowed the team to explore the mechanics and environmental interaction of the chemical and physics engines that would inspire hours of interaction from curious gamers to see what they could do. The inspiration of the first Zelda game are quite clear on Breath of the Wild, and other elements covered in the presentation also raise a few eyebrows when we look at what we now know of the sequel. There's concept art featuring Link with the mechanical arm of sorts, which is used to activate powers or tools similar to that of the Sheikah Slate. Yet another shows an intelligent looking Ganondorf amidst a skybound island housing a castle, a notion most will be all too familiar with following the E3 trailer from 2021. Going through more of these, there are other images which have a good chance of being included in the sequel. One specifically shows the return of the Minish, with smaller inhabitants being an idea the team really wanted to include, but was put aside as the game mired longer in development. Yet another shows the interior of a dungeon shrine type area, although arguably unique to the shrine quests from the first game. The artwork reveals a lighter coloration and sleeker aesthetic, possibly related to a different dungeon type perhaps, yet to be revealed in the sequel. But the open freedom of player engagement was not the only way the first Zelda title inspired the team. Hyrule Historia describes the Fallen timeline as follows. Of all possible outcomes, Link, the hero of time, faced defeat at the hands of Ganondorf. The thief obtained the 3 pieces of the Triforce, transformed into the Demon King Ganon, and continued to threaten the world in future eras. The conflict surrounding the Triforce continued without end. The blood of the gods weakened, and the kingdom of Hyrule shrank to a shadow of its former glory. To be clear, I'm not heading down a timeline theory path here, nor am I saying that Breath of the Wild sits in the Fallen timeline. What I am pointing out though is that the environment of Hyrule from Breath of the Wild sounds eerily similar to that described in the first and second Legend of Zelda titles. In reference to the first game, Hyrule is considered a kingdom in decline. More specifically, it states, "No one appeared who was able to wield the Triforce, and Hyrule divided again and again, continuing to shrink. The proud kingdom of Hyrule had once covered a vast area of land, but the passage of the ages saw its decline, and eventually shrank into a single small kingdom. Though the Triforce of Wisdom continued to be handed down from generation to generation, as the long years passed, the existence of the Triforce of Courage and the tragedy of Princess Zelda I were also lost to memory." The booklet describes the inhabitants as being surrounded by harsh and abundant nature, a description that's very akin to that seen in Breath of the Wild. Heck, even this picture of Ganon's dungeon entrance from The Legend of Zelda looks like a cartoonish interpretation of the adorned cave entrance we see in the first trailer. Summing up, we have a kingdom in decline, a wild abundance of nature, relics of the past littering the landscape, and a princess who shows a tenuous connection to the powers of the goddess graced to her lineage, waning over the ages as the stories of the past become the era of myth and legend. So moving into the sequel, I started looking into The Legend of Zelda and Adventure of Link to see if the story might present any clues. And what I found was interesting to say the least. You see, whilst Link defeats Ganon in his beast form in the first Legend of Zelda, the sequel describes the land where Ganon's horde continue to wreak havoc in an attempt to resurrect their master. This involves a ceremony with a blood sacrifice of sorts, which was the inspiration for the last video I made, What If Link is Dying? The story is detailed as follows. It explains one great king of Hyrule who had put the Triforce's power to use was concerned that its might would be abused after his death. In order to prevent this, he hid the Triforce of Courage, placing a spell over the land of Hyrule. The monarch's magic ensured that a crest would appear upon a worthy person who had been properly raised once they had reached a certain age and gained enough experience. Though the prince and young princess were already heirs to the throne, the king of Hyrule had his doubts about the worth and character of his son. Seeing more promise in Princess Zelda, he passed on the Triforce to her in secret. Following the king's death and with no crest appearing upon the hand of the prince, the power of the Triforce he had inherited as the new king was incomplete. This new king was advised by his closest confidant, a wizard, that Princess Zelda seemed to know what was behind these events, and despite being interrogated by the wizard and her brother the king, Princess Zelda confessed nothing. The wizard lost his temper and threatened to use magic to cast a spell that would cause the princess to sleep for all eternity, but she stubbornly refused to talk. Once the wizard had finished casting his spell, Princess Zelda crumpled where she stood. Mad with grief and regretting what he had done, the young king placed his sleeping sister Princess Zelda on an altar in the North Castle, in the hopes that she would someday be revived. To ensure this tragedy would never be forgotten, custom was established that decreed that every girl born into Hyrule's royal family would be given the name of Zelda. So now aware of the tragedy of Zelda the First and the meaning of the symbol on his hand, Impa provides Link with a scroll left by the king written in ancient Hylian that no one can decipher except the bearer of the mark. Link is able to read the scroll, which details the location of the Triforce of Courage, and also explains that the Chosen must journey to 6 palaces and defeat their guardian deities to bring down the barrier on the final location and gain access to the Triforce. Leading into the sequel to Breath of the Wild, many have wondered how the place of the divine beasts and dungeons might come about, as well as wondering the role of the Triforce, which was almost incidental in the first game. Whilst I don't see Nintendo going from this storyline directly, I do think it serves as a perfect inspiration for what we might see in the sequel, whilst also answering some of the main questions we have. Palaces provide the perfect basis for dungeons in the sequel. They're clearly hidden, as implied by the tale, and the number aligns perfectly with the 6 sages prevalent throughout Zelda lore, with the addition of the final 7th palace representing Zelda, the 7th sage. The guardian deities are not simply a throwback to the Guardians of Breath of the Wild, but I dare say this frog-like creature encountered in the trailer is a prime example of what one of them would be. Many have speculated that this creature does not appear to be evil, but more so a troll of sorts, which would fit the narrative of the storyline perfectly. Moreover, he's powered by a green type energy, which many have linked to the hand-sealing Ganon. This could also be interpreted to match the colour of courage and Furore, the deity of courage. If the Triforce was sealed in the palace, now floating above Hyrule and Ganon's grasp, it would seem fitting that defeating all 6 palaces and guardians would allow the player to then enter the final palace, face the challenges within, and finally grasp the Triforce of Courage to help defeat Ganon once and for all. According to the adventure of Link, the final guardian to be faced is the Thunderbird. Now, tell me if a battle against a giant guardian deity like the Thunderbird reimagined in the world of Breath of the Wild does not sound epic. I also think this could be an apt use of the mechanic recently patented by Nintendo for Link, using his bow whilst falling and diving at various degrees. Maybe the final battle will be the Thunderbird and could be across skies, falling to islands and traversing up and down to best the opponent. I don't know about you, but it just sounds awesome to me. But the game didn't end there. After the Thunderbird was vanquished, players are greeted with the final test against their shadow, Dark Link. Little explanation, the player must confront the dark incarnation of themselves in a showdown of skill and endurance. The fight in gaming standards is notoriously hard, and a retake on this enemy for Breath of the Wild 2 could be just the remedy for those who thought Calamity Ganon was way too easy. Coming back to the question earlier about the mirror, did you manage to find one? I'm not including the item many think is the Mirror of Twilight near Lurelin, in case you're wondering. Creating a champion shows one of the only specific examples I could find, and its location is Princess Zelda's room. It states simply, full-length mirror, 30, so there is no reflection. I thought that was an oddly specific thing to note. Intrigued, I had to investigate this further to see for myself. And upon inspection of the room, the remnants of what appears to be the full-length mirror featured in the corner. This is in addition to a dresser, which could be argued to have a mirror fold out near the wardrobe. On both occasions though, they are notably deteriorated and non-reflective. So the only place in the game I can find evidence of a mirror was in Princess Zelda's room. I thought that would be the end of the thread, but I was wrong. See, whilst I was there, I decided to reread the diary. I was taken aback when I read the second last entry again. It says, I had a dream last night, in a place consumed by darkness. A lone woman gazed at me, haloed by blinding light. I sensed she was not of this world. I don't know if she was a fairy or a goddess, but she was beautiful. Her lips spoke urgently, but her voice did not reach me. Would I have heard her if my power was awoken? Or was my dream simply a manifestation of my fears? I am sure I will know the answers soon, whether I wish to or not. Zelda goes on with her final entry, reflecting on the dream, which filled her with a strange and terrible certainty that something awful was about to happen. Factually speaking, we know this incarnation of Zelda has struggled with realizing her sealing powers. Experiences a dream in a place consumed by darkness where she receives somewhat of an omen from a being she describes as not of this world, precursor to the calamity. This event would happen in her room, the only place I can find evidence of a mirror in all of Hyrule. Another connection to themes of darkness, beings of another realm, mirrors. Many Zelda theorists have made a strong connection between the events in Zelda games and the ancient Japanese religion, Shintoism. The connections are there and confirmed by developers, with more recent examples being the Tori seen in the sequel trailer, with Tori acting as gates between the mundane and the spiritual realm of the kami, deities and spirits. But another very important symbol to Shintoism is the mirror. Mirrors are considered to be items of immense power, culturally speaking. In fact, the 3 sacred items transferred to the Emperor of Japan is a sword, a gem, and a mirror. See, according to Japanese mythology, a mirror and a jewel were used to lure the sun goddess Amaterasu Omakami from the cave where she had withdrawn, which had plunged the world into darkness. As such, the Emperor receives the 3 sacred treasures to seal his ascension to the throne: the regalia, a sword, a jewel, and a mirror, all of which symbolize legitimacy. They are so crucial, in fact, that the Emperor Hirohito is said to have stated that protecting them was a factor in his decision to surrender in World War II. Bringing this back to the topic at hand though, does it then seem odd that this simple household item, present in homes and game worlds and intrinsically integral to the culture and religion which act as the core inspiration for Breath of the Wild, is absent in its entirety from the game? Where it could make some sense, I guess, is if we have a situation where a certain ancient tribe of powerful magic wielders was banished, in a similar vein to that of the Twilight, and that the mirror, now synonymous with the Dark Realm, is also shunned, ensuring this tribe remained forever isolated from the land of Hyrule. It's a crazy thought, I know, yet if the plan was to reintroduce Dark Link to the storyline for Breath of the Wild, the points raised in this video about the connections between the Dark World, an ancient evil tribe banished from the kingdom, and mirrors starts to actually make a whole heap of sense. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you've made it this far, you have my gratitude and heartfelt thanks. I appreciate there's a lot of speculation being thrown about here, but I hope you'd agree the evidence and supporting details go a fair way into making this what if a consideration when it comes to how things might play out in the sequel. At the very least, I hope the points raised here continue to inspire the many fans of the series to consider alternatives, and keep adding to the mysteries and lore that make The Legend of Zelda such a rich tapestry of wonder, imagination, and intrigue. Plenty more what ifs to come, and I look forward to sharing those with you. Thanks for being patient in between videos as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and a massive thanks to those who responded positively to the last video and took the time to share their awesome thoughts and ideas. It was really inspiring and truly humbling, so thank you so much. Thanks for being amazing. Please take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time here on GameSmiths.
If I may be so bold, what is it that you are planning to do next, Princess?
The Master Sword. I heard it speak to me. It seems that my role is unfinished. There is still something I must do.
I sense there is great strength in your dedication.
Great Deku Tree, I ask of you, when he returns, can you please relay this message? Tell him
Now then, words intended for him would sound much better in the tones of your voice, don't you think?
Yes.